Hello. I am back again. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mattress. I am a drag queen based in Leeds, and I am going to show you how to do some makeup and how to save some of you baby queens from yourself, because let's be real, some of y'all need some help. So today I am bored of all of these like weird TikTok, like tomato girl, potato girl, espresso makeup, latte makeup. I just want to do some glam. We are going to be doing just a super kind of basic makeup look, and this is what I'm going to be doing. So if that sounds like something you'd like to see, then keep on watching. So the first step is what I believe to be the most important, and that is skin prep. It's really important to make sure that your base is really kind of well moisturised, but not too moisturised that the makeup is going to melt off, and also just generally ready for makeup. So I'm just using some kind of very basic moisturiser. And then I am going to take the e.l.f. Polish Putty Primer. This is the green one because I think it is a little bit nicer. And I'm going to just smooth that over the centre of my face, where I tend to have a little bit more texture. And then the last kind of step in our skin prep, I am going to use some lip balm. This is the Laneige Lip Sleeping Mask. I love this. I'm just going to put some of that on the back of my nail. I've put that on my lips. And now that we look almost exactly the same, but just slightly shinier, we actually get to start some makeup. So, I used to be a face tape queen, but I found that whenever I was like working with face tapes on, by the end of the night, one of them would always ping off, and then I'd look kind of like I had a stroke, and that's not really the look I'm going for. So, instead, I just started shaving off a little bit more of my eyebrows. I use my real eyebrows. I can't be bothered to glue them down, cover them, and then draw them back on again. So, I use the Got2b brow gel, and I'm just brushing them up. At the front of my eyebrow, I like to brush them pretty much straight up, and then towards the ends, I like to brush them more kind of up and out, and I find that that gives me a base to draw on, because I actually extend my eyebrows rather than just like using these ones. Luckily, God bless me with a hormone imbalance, so I don't actually need to do that much to try and get mine too much higher. And the next step is that we're going to use a brow pencil to draw them on basically longer. Everyone draws their eyebrows on kind of different shapes. I like to use the like golden ratio method thing that Anastasia Beverly Hills used to do. And I like mine to look quite lifted and just mean looking. I always want to look like I don't quite believe you. So quite high and with a little bit of an arch in them. Now that my eyebrows look like they met once on a cruise 6 years ago and have never met since, we are going to carve them out. So I like to use the P. Louise base in Rumour 0.5 and just like a flat topped brush, and I like to carve out underneath. Period. And then I'm just going to take like a concealer brush and I'm going to spread this across my lids. So if your eyebrows aren't even close to being even like mine, don't worry, just make sure nobody sees your face on. Always stand a little bit to the side and no one will ever notice. That's a life hack. Now that we've carved out our eyebrows, I'm going to set just underneath the brow bone with some white shadow. And then we are going to take our best friend. I like to use tape to like cut underneath this line here. I find that it just means that I can be a little bit freer and looser with my eyeshadow, which means that generally I can get a bit of a nicer blend, but we still get that super harsh, like, cunty line underneath. Yeah, I'm going to tape up my eyes, and then I will zoom you in, and we can get into some eyeshadow. So, whilst you can kind of get away with it, if your eyebrows aren't even, you really want these tapes to be as even as possible, otherwise your whole eye look is going to look uneven, and you are just going to look a little bit confused the entire night. So we are going to be using eyeshadow sticks to make things faster and easier to begin with. First up, I'm going to take my e.l.f. All Smudge No Budge eyeshadow stick in thrift shop. and we're just going to kind of draw in our general crease shape. So this doesn't have to be particularly like neat or solid, because we are going to go in and blend everything out. And then just before it sets, I'm going to take a blending brush and I'm just going to blend the top line of this. And you want to blend this, put this like quite high up, so when you are looking forward, I like for the kind of front bit of it here to almost hit my eyebrow. I think there's something that kind of creates quite a high fashion and slightly like editorial look about the beginning of your eyeshadow hitting your eyebrow. I think it's kind of cunty. And then I'm going to take Old Faithful. This is the Pixie, I don't know what it's called because everything's rubbed off, and it is the best eyeshadow stick I've ever used. So I am going to take some of this and I'm just going to do the outer and the inner corners, and I'm just going to blend it with the same brush. And you can put this a little bit lower than the first cream shadow we put on. And then finally with the creams, we are going to take a pencil eyeliner. This one is like a black glittery one. It doesn't really matter. We're going to put a shit ton of eyeshadow on top. And I'm just going to start kind of mapping out some of the depth and the darkness around my outer corner. And I'm just taking a small pencil brush and blending that a little bit. And this step, we are going to cover everything up, so it's not entirely option. No, it's not entirely compulsory. But I just find that putting creams down for everything first helps you get that kind of depth and the blend in the eye look that makes it look like your makeup has taken a very, very long time and is very difficult to do, but just quite quickly and very easily. So next up, I'm going to be taking a neutral palette. I'm going to be using the Hindash Beautopsy palette. You don't have to use something like this. Any neutral eyeshadow palette will do. So first up, I'm going to take a kind of medium sized pencil brush and I'm going to dip into a mid-tone. I'm using the shade Intra from the Hindash palette, and I'm going to start by like drawing my crease in to give me a basis to blend everything around. So I'm just going in with this and I'm going to start carving out the same kind of shape as I did with the cream shadows, just a little bit kind of neater. Oh, I cannot stress enough, please do not do one eye, do both steps at the same time on both eyes, and it's just going to make everything so much easier for you. I'm going to take a small-ish kind of blending brush and I am going to dip into a slightly lighter brown. I'm using the shade Feel from the Hindash palette, and then I'm just going to blend out mainly the top line of this. We are going to cut our crease, so anything below is not really going to be seen, so it doesn't really matter. You can just be kind of messy with this because we are going to clean everything up with a cut crease later, except for on the outer corner you want to be a little bit neater. And on our inner corner here, I like to take this a little bit further in so that it will line up with our nose contour later on. And as you can see, I'm holding my brush quite far down. That's because I want to get quite a soft blend on this, because it is going to be the majority of my blending work. If you hold your brush up here, you get a lot more pressure, and it's also a lot harder to make like more sweepy strokes. Lastly, for our kind of like crease work, I'm going to take a pencil brush. I recommend having like one pencil brush that you only use for black eyeshadow. When you're working with black, it can get very muddy very quickly, and just keeping your black to like one pencil brush like this can make sure that it doesn't go too wild. So then for this, I'm just going to go back in and deepen things up a little bit further. And I generally like to keep my black to the outer corner. I don't really like putting black on my inner corner. I think it can just look a little bit too harsh. And as you can see, everything kind of follows the same kind of like down and out shape, which creates that really like lifted kind of snatched look. And then I'm going to go back in with my mid-tone. This is the shade Intra, and then the shade Feel on our fluffy brush. And if you're finding any bits that you're struggling to blend, or where things are getting a little bit muddy, you can take either like a face powder, a powder foundation, or like nude, whatever nude for your skin tone is, coloured eyeshadow, and just blend over it. And because the eyeshadows or the face powders are quite kind of smooth and translucent, it will create this kind of like slightly filtered look. So next up, I'm going to cut my crease with some more of the P. Louise base, and just before we do this, I'm going to get my pigment ready. I prefer using loose pigments to glitters because I find that they're a little bit more comfortable on my eye. So what I'm going to do is like cut my crease, and then while the base is still wet, I'm going to press some pigment into it. The pigment I'm going to use is the Peaches Makeup Gatsby pigment, which is, I think, one of the best pigments I've ever used. It is beautiful. It's just like a really nice kind of like half goldy, half silvery, nudie pigment. It's really good. It's basically like a shimmer eyeshadow on crack. So I'm going to use a flat kind of eyeshadow brush like this, base on the back of my hand, and then cut the crease. A really easy way to make sure that your cut crease is kind of at the right kind of shape and it's making your eyeshadow bigger is to take a little bit of your base, or you can use concealer, on your brush, paint it along your lower lash line. Try not to get it on your lashes because otherwise it'll all print. And then like frown and look up, and it will print a little kind of marker on your lash line, and that'll be kind of roughly where you want the highest point of your lash line, of your cut crease to be. I quite like to have it so that my cut crease almost like leads into this black wing section that we've got going on. But then from there, there isn't really any way to explain it. You just cut your crease. And with your cut crease, you want this inner bit to start really low, kind of as low as you can, and then like be rounded upwards, because that's going to give you a slightly more rounded socket shape. And you can do kind of like a full crease that goes out here. I quite enjoy like a half crease. It's a lot less work, and I think it tends to kind of look nicer from all angles. And I like to quite make the shape of my cut crease kind of follow the same kind of shape as my lid, but just a little bit higher, so that it still looks natural with my actual bone structure. I find that working with your bone structure and trying to find things that complement it, rather than working directly against it, makes your makeup look a lot more natural. So then I'm going to take a little kind of dense padded brush. This one's not too big. And I'm going to spray it with a little bit of setting spray, dip it into my pigment, and then put that on my eye. And I'm not taking that all the way back here, but I am taking it right up to this crease line. And as you can see, that is just like a really gorgeous, kind of slightly glittery gold. And once you're happy with that, we're going to go in with another of these kind of brushes, and we're going to take a slightly darker shimmery brown, and I like to use kind of the edge of my iris as my like reference point, and I'm just going to layer a little bit of a dark brown shimmer over that to make sure that we're still getting this like nice shimmery kind of ethereal look, but we've still got this eye contour reinforced. So then, for one of my favourite steps, I'm going to line the crease with a shimmery, like liquid glitter kind of eyeshadow. This just really reinforces that cut crease there. I'm going to use the Made by Mitchell Drip Drip liquid shadow, and I'm just going to take this on a really fine paintbrush. I think it's actually like a nail art brush, and I'm going to line that inner crease. And you will see that when that catches the light, it just really kind of makes the cut crease shape a lot more defined. And now we're going to take eyeliner. I like to use a really thick, chunky eyeliner for my outer corner and do a wing. I generally like for the end of the flick of my wing to come to higher than kind of the highest point of my eye when it's open, to create like a really lifted look. But your eyeliner is down to personal preference. I would recommend one night when you're not going to see anyone, when everyone else is out the house, just sit with some makeup remover, some eyeliner, and just do eyeliner over and over again. Do it, take it off, do it, take it off, and you will figure out kind of what shape works for you and what shape you like. And And the best tip I can give is to make sure that your eyeliner always looks just as good with your eye closed and your eye open, and make sure that that flick isn't getting cut into by your natural crease. I have quite hooded eyes, so that does happen. So now that's done, we get to have the immense pleasure of peeling off our tapes, and as you can see, it creates a super sharp line. All of your eye makeup lines up, and it creates a very kind of lifted, snatched look. Hopefully when you look in the mirror, your eyes should be kind of vaguely even. So for our base, I like to do a method called underpainting. I like to put on the majority of the legwork of my contours before my foundation. I find that doing that, I can put like a little bit on top, and it looks like I'm wearing like the tiniest amount of makeup, but actually it's everything underneath doing all the legwork. You are going to look crazy before you put your foundation on. Do not worry, it is fine. I'm going to go in with my contour shade. This is actually an Aldi concealer. I like to do this with concealers because I can then go in with a slightly lighter coverage foundation, and I have all of the coverage from the concealers underneath, but it looks like I'm wearing a much lighter foundation. So you barely need like any of this, and we are going to just dot this on the cheeks. I like for my contour to come where this kind of like wobbly bit of my ear is, and I'm putting kind of that much on. This spreads really far, so it looks like I'm putting like the tiniest amount on, but don't worry, we are going to be looking slightly problematic soon. When this blends, it's going to blend to being a lot more intense. And then I'm taking my contour brush. This is a Real Technique sculpting brush, and we're going to start blending. And I like to pat rather than swipe so that we don't end up with this darker contour all over our faces. And I like to take it quite high up in the back and then bring it kind of lower and no further in than my iris. I find that that creates a kind of most feminine shape. And now we're going to go in with an even darker contour. This is a darker foundation stick, and I'm going to put a tiny bit of this right in the pockets of my contours. And then I'm going to take the same brush and I'm going to tap this in. But I find having this kind of underpainted super dark contour does like a huge amount of legwork for the restructuring. So now I'm going to go in with a concealer that is kind of a little bit lighter than my skin tone, and I'm going to start kind of carving shapes out and adding coverage where I want it. And you want to be careful on this outer corner here that you don't go over your eye makeup. I've fully done like a full eye of eye makeup before and then put foundation straight over the top of it, and it's all gone, and it is heartbreaking. But we're basically going to just put this in all of the places that we would highlight. And then I'm also going to use it to just start carving out this contour shape. And then I'm going to take another brush, but I find that because of the shape of this, because it's kind of shaped like a dome and it's slightly smaller on top, you can get quite a lot of control with it. And again, I'm kind of tapping this so that I can keep some control over how far it blends. And then I'm going to go in with my contour brush and just blend between the two to make sure that we get quite a nice blend. Because of the way that we do this, any areas that are blended, we want to be quite blended, because anywhere that there is like a harsh or a straight line, the line kind of shows through. Like the whole point of this is that everything should show through. So if there is like a cut or anything like that, we just, like, you can really see it. So, I don't know where I was, I just got distracted, the postman arrived. I cannot remember where I was. However, what I have done is, I've wet my beauty blender to put on foundation. I love putting on foundation with a beauty blender because it shears it out, and I find that you can control it a little bit easier. And I have also taken the first eyeshadow stick that we used, and I've just used it to draw on my nose contour lines. I realised I forgot to do this earlier, so my bad. But I've just done from where kind of my inner corner here is, brought that down my nose, and then I like to do this kind of button nose effect. And that doesn't need to be particularly blended because we are going to do quite a lot of work around our nose later. You'll see, don't worry. I'm going to take my foundation. I'm going to use the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish Foundation. A really good drugstore option is the L'Oreal infallible one with red lip. I'm going to find my... This is a brilliant foundation. It's what we use for dance competitions. I am just trying to use this up at the moment. And then I'm going to take it on the bottom of my beauty blender, and I'm just going to start blending over everything, being careful to avoid my eyes. Don't worry, we're going to put concealer and stuff around them, so if you don't get super close with the foundation, that is fine. And as you can see, this foundation has a kind of like nice, pretty like solid medium coverage. However, it doesn't look super heavy, but because we've got the foundations underneath, you don't see my skin through it really. I like to use like body makeup to cover any part of my body that's showing, so I find that matches this up a little bit better, and blending like all the way down your neck onto your chest also really helps. So for our next step, I'm going to go in with my super bright highlight. This is just another Aldi concealer. The Aldi makeup is really, really good, side note. I don't think I've actually tried anything yet that I haven't really enjoyed. So if you're ever in Aldi, or even Lidl, pick some of this shit up, because it is great. So I'm just going to go in, and we're going to do like some highlighting with this. And we can be quite liberal with this. I quite like and we're basically going to put this in the places highlighted with the concealer underneath our foundation. And as you can see, I've just lined this up with the... And then we're going to go in with some bronzer. I like to use a kind of sheerer cream. This is the Marc Jacobs bronzer stick. I've had this for years. Again, it's really good. But I like to do this because then we've got most of the groundwork coming from underneath, but we've just got this layer of bronzer on top. And we're doing that in the same kind of general shape as we have on below, but because it's a lighter, like softer, sheerer contour, it looks like we've not done much, but we're still getting, once again, that groundwork peeking through. I'm then going to do one of my favourite tricks, which I ashamedly learned off TikTok. I'm going to take the NYX Jumbo eye pencil in Milk, and I'm just going to draw an exclamation mark on my nose and then pat it out with my nose, and this just creates like a really snatched contour. And I'm going to take a tiny little bit of it and just highlight right underneath this line of my eye. Now that we've got all our contouring done, we get to move on to my favourite bit, which is some blush. This is the Rare Beauty blush in Joy. It's just kind of like, it's quite a universally flattering kind of peachy coral shade. It's very, very pigmented though, so I scrape off most of it onto the bottle and then just put on like a couple of dots. Period. So next up, we're going to set everything. I'm using Coty Airspun. It is my favourite powder. So I'm going to take a little bit of Coty Airspun into the lid of another powder because I can't find my Coty powder lid. And I'm going to take it on one of these Trickwell puffs. I fucking love these. These are great. And I'm going to press it into all of my highlight areas first. And then I'm just going to press it into the rest of my face. So now we're going to go back in, we're going to recontour everything with powders first of all. So I'm going to take a kind of fluffy flat topped brush and dip into my contour shade. I'm using the contour that's in the Be Perfect, the Vivienne Be Perfect palette. I think it's being discontinued, but if you don't have it already and you're just starting drag, I would highly recommend buying it. I'm just going to go in and contour everywhere that we cream contoured before. I'm just going to keep this in the pockets because I'm going to go back in with bronzer and kind of widen this area, but this will do the kind of majority of contouring, and I don't want to use this all over my cheeks, otherwise it does kind of look like a bruise. And then we're going to go in with bronzer. I love these Kiko like baked bronzers. They do them for most of their collections. They are truly amazing and they last forever. I've had this one since I started drag and it's got like a pretty hefty dip in it, but she's still got life in it yet. And I'm taking one of these kind of like fluffy brushes to effect, and we're just going to take this and bronze up our cheeks. I love bronzer. So I'm a great believer, and there's not too much no such thing as too much bronzer. And try not to overlap this with where we contoured too much, otherwise it can look just a little bit muddy and gross. We are then going to take some on a very fluffy brush and we're going to go in and contour our nose, basically doing the same shape as we've always been doing. If it's not too neat, don't worry, we are going to neaten it up when we go in and bake everything in a second. But I didn't realise that I had a particularly strong nose contour until I was putting my housemate in drag, and Miss Molly, I'm looking at you bitch, and she asked for a mattress nose, and I was like, what? I didn't even realise there was such a thing. So now that we've got all of our kind of contours and our depth sorted, we're going to go in and bake our highlights again using the same Coty Airspun powder, and I like to use this on my Trick Well Puff folded in half because I can get some like slightly neater lines here. First of all, I find that cutting under your contour creates it's much more of a like drag queen look. Then we're going in to our eyes. I'm not going too close to my nose because I have a specific like nose baking. It's not quite a routine, but it's quite intense to say. It's literally just my nose, like so. And then I'm going to take my absolute favourite brush. This is the best brush I've ever had. It is a precision baking brush, and it's what I use to bake around my nose. I don't know if they still make it, because I got it in TK Maxx. It's a Japanesque 712, but I use it to bake around my nose contour. I've tried a few different brushes to do this, and nothing gets it as good as this. And I find that because it's a brush rather than using the puff or a sponge, you lay down a lot more product and you can be a lot more precise with it. And I like to line up the inner corner of that bake with where my cookery starts, because I think it just once again makes everything lead into everything else. I find that the thing with my makeup is it's not necessarily about like the shapes and things like that, but there is just like a lot of steps, and it just kind of makes sure that everything is super intentional with the placement. So I've got the NYX Lift and Snatch brow pen, and I'm just going to go in and basically darken up my brows and draw in some brow hairs at the end, because where my brow is drawn onto my skin, there's no hair there obviously, but it creates like a textural difference, and I find that this just manages to hide it quite nicely. And you can also just kind of touch up the shape of your brows, which is always handy. Perfect, so it's very subtle. It does just darken your eyebrows up a little bit, and it makes it look like your eyebrows are actually hair, rather than eyebrow shapes drawn on your face. Next up, we're going to do our under eyes. I like to go in with really tiny brushes on my under eyes, because I find that things can get out of control quite quickly if you let them. So first up, I'm going to take just a small flat brush and the colour Intra from this Hindash palette, which is just like a chocolatey brown, and I am going to take this along my lash line from the outer corner to probably about halfway across. Perfect. And then I'm going to take just the black pencil brush that I had earlier, and I'm going to just take some on the very tip, some black, and just run that along the very outer, kind of like half of what, like the outer quarter of my eye. And then I'm going to take a liner brush and the Intra colour, and I'm just going to extend my outer corner outwards a little bit. And then I'm going to take white eyeliner, I'm going to extend my inner corner, and I'm going to add an inner corner flick. I will show you how to do this, but it's quite difficult to do. And my like white inner corner is like, everyone likes to have them different shapes. It's got to be shaped for your eye. I know some people like to put like black liner on, or like a very dark brown. You could do that here, that would also look lovely. But I like to do the white, and I'm just going to speed through that. So then I'm going to take my angled brush again, I'm going to dip into some of the Fuel shade, and I'm just going to kind of put a liner along the bottom of that white. And as you can see, that just kind of links everything in and makes it look like your eye shape is actually like. So next I'm just going to add an inner corner flick with an eyeliner. I'm actually using very dark brown. I think that it looks a little bit more natural than the black. Like so, and then I'm just going to take my black liner from earlier and I'm going to line across the whole of my upper lash line. We're now in final steps. I'm going to keep you zoomed in, and I'm going to go in with some blush. This is a Colourpop blush and once again, blush on your forehead. One of the best pieces of advice that my good Judy and drag sister, Miss Layla, once gave me is that only freaks don't wear blush. And I never used to be a blush girl, and I have since seen the light. And then I'm going to take a shimmery blush in more of like a nudie colour, and I'm going to put that on top and kind of use it to blend into like my bronzer and stuff. Slay. Slay her. Drag her. Slay her. So now I'm going to take some setting spray. This is the NYX Bear With Me. I really like this. While it is still slightly damp, I'm going to add some highlighter. This is the MAC Extra Dimension Skin Finish in Double Gleam. And then I'm going to go in with the highlighters in the Skepta in the Be Perfect Vivian palette. These are much more intense highlights, so I'm going to take these on the same brush and I'm just going to put them kind of like a little bit more concentrated, so that they really catch the light, and I'm just mixing the two shades together. And having that kind of double highlight kind of makes it look like your skin still looks like skin when the light isn't directly hitting it, but you still get this super contoured, highlighted look. And then I'm going to go in with some more setting spray and just kind of let this melt everything in. And I really want to try the MAC Fix Plus. I've never tried it before, but MAC, if you're watching, give me a call. Next up, I'm just going to put on some mascara and lashes. And I'm just putting that mascara on my outer corner. I'm going to go in with my brow pencil, wherever the fuck that's gone. Okay, I'm going to go in with a different brow pencil, and I'm just going to draw in my moles, and if I've got any spots, I'm going to turn them into beauty spots. And I find that doing this with a brow pencil kind of works quite well. Using a brow pencil, just make sure that it stays very much within the realm of what would be natural. Because we're really going for natural here. So now I'm going to whack on some lashes. I'm also going to put on some hair and maybe some different earrings. And then I will be back to finish my lights. So, full disclosure, this was not how I imagined the hair to turn out. However, I kind of live. It was just like, it was supposed to be like a soft, straight, slightly curly blowout, which I did with the Dyson Airwrap. Gone but not forgotten. So, I think I was going to do a nude lip, but I feel like because the hair is so intense, the look kind of needs something to like hold its own against the hair. So I think I'm going to do a red lip. So as with everything else on our face, the lip also needs some contouring. So I'm going to start off by going in with the Colourpop lip pencil in Frenchie. And then I generally like use the actual shape of my lips. I overline my bottom lip a little bit because it's already quite a bit bigger than my top lip and I find it quite funny. So I just like kind of make my Cupid's bow look extra defined and then line the rest of my lips as is. So now that I've done that bit, I'm going to go in and darken up some areas with a darker lip pencil. This is like an almost black, but it's actually a purple. It's the MAC lip liner in Night Moth. The red that I'm using today is the Pat McGrath Lip Trance lipstick in Sedition 422, and I'm going to apply this with a lip brush. I quite like the control that it gives, and this is quite like a thick formula, so I like to put it on really, really lightly. And I can't lie, usually if I'm wearing a nude, I do literally just like whack it on, but I always think with a red lip, if you take time to apply it, it always just looks so much better. And as you can hopefully see, that darker purple lip liner around the edges just makes everything kind of like, it like just gives it a bit more dimension. So now I'm just going to go back in and I'm just going to neaten up some areas. And then to make sure that I don't get lipstick on my teeth, because that is one of the most embarrassing things ever, when you come home from a night out and you realise that you've got lipstick all over your face and all over your teeth, you can take 2 fingers and put them in my mouth and pull them out, and it'll take off anything that's on the inner rim. And that is the finished look. I hope you enjoyed watching today. If you have any more ideas for videos that you would like to see from me, then please put them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that other stuff that I'm supposed to do now. If you like how I look, then follow me on Instagram at mattressmua. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a fabulous, fabulous day, and I hope if you're following this tutorial to go out in drag, please send me photos. I would love to see it, and I will see you next time. Could be sooner than you think. Right, goodbye.